On today's show, Team USA fails to medal at all in FIBA World Cup action. Plus, how have Jalen Brunson and Barrett grown through their FIBA World Cup experiences for Team USA and Team Canada? It's all coming up right here at Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Now, today's episode is brought to you by Ibotta. Look, groceries are already super expensive, so why don't you get a little bit of cash back in your pocket for all that cash that you're shelling out next time you head to the grocery store? Ibotta gives you cash back on hundreds of grocery items, from produce to personal care to pantry goods, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. Just link your loyalty account or upload your receipt after you shop and get your cash back. It's that simple. Other apps give you points that don't really amount to much, but with Ibotta, you get cash back that you can use to cash out to your bank account, PayPal, or even gift cards. You earn cash back on hundreds of online brands, retailers with Ibotta, including Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and so many more. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using code LOCKED when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app and use code LOCKED. That's Ibotta, I-B-O-T-T-A, in the Google Play or App Store, and use code LOCKED. Joining us now is the host of Locked On Knicks, Gavin Schall, who you can track down wherever you listen to your podcasts, or on YouTube, just search Locked On Knicks. Gavin, Team USA failing to medal at all in FIBA World Cup action, the second time now that they've left FIBA action without receiving any medal honors. What should the headline be for Team USA after not getting a medal at all, after going in as the expected favorites for the tournament?
I think it's just that this is the reality of international basketball now. And look, you can point fingers. You can say this is the failing of specific guys. You could say this is a failing of roster construction, which I've argued to some extent, and just bringing too many offensively focused players. But ultimately, this is what it is, right? Like I rewind to the Redeem Team years, and with everyone, right? With D Wade, with LeBron, with Kobe, they were barely beating those Spain teams. And you can argue that, well, maybe they're not playing teams as talented as that Spain team, but this has been the case pretty much since 2002, when the U.S. finished, I think, sixth in that World Cup in Indianapolis, right? Like we are, like, it's kind of been a delayed effect for everyone to catch up with that being the reality of the basketball world. And I think part of that is just the differences between FIBA ball and NBA ball in terms of rules, the literal differences with the actual basketball, the added camaraderie that other teams have. But for whatever reason, international play, the advancement in NBA talent, and I want to make it clear, other countries have not caught up to the U.S. in that respect. There's 450 players in the NBA. 330 of them are from America. America is still dominant in terms of NBA basketball, but it hasn't been the case in international ball for a long time, unless we send our best.
Yeah, if there's one silver lining to Team USA kind of struggling this go-around, is that next year for the Olympics, it feels like we might get all the stars really turning out, kind of almost a Redeem Team-esque type thing, if you will, next time around. I will, and I do agree, right? It's the international teams, right? They just have this camaraderie, this cohesion that you don't really get from Team USA basketball, unfortunately, because these guys aren't constantly playing together year round. They're not always around each other. They're just, a team of players that are incredibly talented, but they are kind of thrown together, last minute, if you will. Rudy Gay even tweeted out, he said that he thinks Team USA should really go back to tryouts. And I'm imagining what that would even look like, just having players actually have to put forth their bet rather than hand-picking players, but, forcing them to actually go through tryouts and, potentially being cut from Team USA, because then maybe you play with a bit more of a chip on your shoulder.
Yeah, I don't know if guys' egos are going to allow that. Like, I think you're getting no one. You're going back to Eric Micah, who's an intern for some financial company right now on the team. But I like the spirit of it. And yeah, look, that's just part of the inherent challenge. And with AAU culture, like, these guys do have some reps together and they do have some moments together. But again, you look at that Redeem Team, like the last time you want to say like U.S. basketball was just, dominant to some extent. And those were guys that not only grew up playing together with that Wade, James, Bosh, even Dwight Howard, Chris Paul generation, but there was also an element of, like, they did commit 3 or 4 straight summers. Like, they were there losing to Greece in that World Cup in I believe 2005, and then they were back in 2008, and a lot of that group was back in 2012. And since then, there's been just a lot more turnover, and it's hard to get that together in a short amount of time. And you see it in big moments of games, right? In the closing moments against Germany, like Anthony Edwards tried to zip that pass to Jaren Jackson Jr., went out of his hands. And like in overtime, Mikal Bridges had a throwaway and then had to dribble off his foot. And you just see these things that rely on incredible split-second timing, and the U.S. just isn't quite there for it. And in turn, you get a lot of isolation-heavy play, and the U.S. is good enough to keep games close doing that because they have so much talent, but not good enough to win against the best teams in the world.
Yeah, it doesn't always feel like a team game when you're watching Team USA, unfortunately. The individual talent is there, but it almost feels like just advanced AAU at times for Team USA, and that's problematic when you're going up against teams like Serbia, like Canada. Even Team Canada felt like they had a bit more cohesion than Team USA did this go around. Shout out to Dylan Brooks, who had a monster game against Team USA, hitting 7 of 8 3-pointers. That was arguably one of the most exciting games of the tournament, the bronze medal game. It was really disappointing, though, that we had so many players sitting out for Team USA in a bronze medal game that, due to illness. Paolo Banchero, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Brandon Ingram missing that game. Not a great look at the end of the day, unfortunately, but it is what it is. USA doesn't medal, but at the forefront of Team USA action and as well as Team Canada action, we got a couple New York Knicks, Jalen Brunson, RJ Barrett. To you, Gavin, what has this experience meant to, and what has this experience done for those two guys, seeing them compete in FIBA action this offseason? How have you seen them kind of grow from these experiences?
Yeah, I'll start with RJ because obviously it's a more positive tournament for him, and it ended on such a high with him hitting what was essentially the dagger to put this game away against the United States. I think what first put RJ right kind of on the scene as the top prospect in high school basketball. And he might have been in the mix for the top ranking before this, but I think he dropped something like 38 points in the United States. It was either a U17 or U18 tournament. And I think it was one of the first times Canada had ever upset the US. And it was sort of like, oh, wow, this dude is for real, right? He just kind of went in and torched the US. And it's sort of the same quality that in the best sense defines his game now. And that's an endless sense of optimism and self-confidence, no matter what goes right, what goes wrong for RJ. Like that same swagger is always there. And I think that was very present throughout this tournament for Canada. The other thing is like, he just looks to be in amazing shape, and the athleticism and his ability to get these dunks where his head's at the rim in the half court. You really haven't seen that from him since his time at Duke. So I'm hoping that translates, and I'm hoping basically some of the shot making he showed for Canada with some of the unselfishness he showed in the Knicks postseason run coalesces into one improved player for the New York Knicks. Jalen Brunson, more of a mixed bag, right? Got so much hype coming into this tournament. Steve Kerr was describing him, even before they described Anthony Edwards, as the alpha on this team. And I think the biggest disappointment for Brunson was you see how much value he loses when he's not allowed to be the number one guy. And I don't know how relevant that is, because on the Knicks, he obviously is the clear-cut number one guy and showed it in kind of the fires of the NBA playoffs. He's more than capable of doing that. But when you take him off the ball, when you challenge him to be more of a facilitator, that's just not totally his game. And that's not to say he didn't have good moments passing the ball. Particularly, he obviously has great chemistry with Mikal Bridges, great chemistry with Josh Hart, but just not quite enough juice there as an off-the-ball weapon. And that's a part of his game. I hope as his career goes on, like he continues to work on it, continues to become a bit more of a movement shooter and be able to leverage his other abilities. But it's nothing really to worry about with Jalen. He'll be in great shape to start the year. I'm just disappointed he didn't have more of a signature moment, because I thought it was going to be a breakout in that sense for him.
Yeah, getting him off ball a little bit more, he's a guy that obviously thrives so much when you put the ball in his hands, and it's tough to kind of want to, maybe take away the element of what he's so good at and put him in that uncomfortable position of like, okay, hey, we need you to try and iron out this, work on this other part of your game. But it's like, but I'm so good at this other part of my game. Why are you going to make me do something that I'm not comfortable with? I mean, do you think there's a world where the Knicks could really benefit from Jalen being more of an off-ball presence, even though his role on the team is clearly put the ball in his hands, let him run the offense?
I just think over the course of the regular season and even in the playoffs, it would be nice for him to get some reps, like attacking a scramble defense, which last year, like it's incredible how efficient he is, given that, I mean, especially you look at the playoffs, like he had 4 Heat defenders staring him down every single play. It was like RJ Barrett's out there, Josh Hart's out there. We don't care. We just care about Jalen. And I think that comes down to him. I mean, one, closing games with Emmanuel quickly, which we saw in the regular season, not so much in the playoffs. And Quentin Grimes, a Houston guy, Jackson, becoming a little bit more explosive in terms of his ability to win one-on-one from a stagnant position and create those opportunities for Jalen Brunson. Obviously, you want to see it from RJ Barrett. You want to see it from Julius Randle. That's just not so much those guys' game. While Quickly and Grimes are more comfortable spraying it. And I think it could make Brunson even more efficient. Like, he's such a good catch and shoot three-point shooter, getting more reps there and being able to attack a hard closeout and getting an easy win off the dribble instead of having to work so hard for everything. I think that'll help preserve him long-term and keep him hyper efficient.
What will Team USA ultimately look like down the line after what was ultimately a disappointing tournament run this go round? How will Jalen Brunson and RJ Barrett take this FIBA experience and translate it back to the New York Knicks? You're going to have us covered for all of that and more over at Locked On Knicks. Gavin, I appreciate you stopping by Locked On NBA with me.
Thanks for having me, Jackson.